The Aramaic and Palestinian Targum, Numbers, chapter 19, Torah portion, Hakath. And the Lord spake with Moshe and Aaron, saying, This is the decree, the publication of the law, which the Lord hath commanded, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, that they bring to thee from the separation of the fold a red heifer, 2 years old, in which there is neither spot nor white hair, on which no male hath come, nor the burden of any work been imposed, neither hurt by the thong, nor grieved by the goad or prick, nor collar or band, or any like yoke. And thou shalt give her unto Eleazar, the chief of the priests, who shall lead her along, so shall lead her alone without the camp, and set round about her a railing, a border of the branches of fig trees. And another priest shall slay her with the 2 signs before him, after the manner of other animals, and examine her by the 18 kinds of division. And Eleazar in his priestly dress shall take of her blood with the finger of his right hand, without first containing it in a vessel, and shall sprinkle the border of fig branches, and afterwards from the midst of a vessel on one side towards the tabernacle of ordinance, with one dipping 7 times he shall sprinkle. And they shall bring her out from the midst of the railing, and another priest, while Eleazar looketh on, shall burn the heifer, whose skin, flesh, and blood, with her dung shall he burn. And another priest shall take a piece of cedar wood and hyssop, and wool, whose colour hath been changed to scarlet, and throw them into the midst of the burning of the heifer. And he shall enlarge the burning, that the ashes may be increased. Jerusalem. And throw into the midst of the ashes of the burning heifer. And the priest who slew the heifer shall wash his dress in 40 satars of water, and afterwards he may go into the camp. But the priest before his oblation shall be unclean until evening, and the priest who was employed in the burning shall wash his dress in 40 satars of water, and his flesh in 40 satars, and before his oblation shall be unclean until the evening. And a man, a priest who is clean, shall gather up the ashes of the heifer in an earthenware receptacle, its opening covered round about with clay, and shall divide the ashes into 3 portions, on which one shall be placed within the wall of Jerusalem, another in the Mount of Olives, and the 3rd portion be in the custody of the Levites, and it shall be for the congregation of Israel, for the water of sprinkling. It is the heifer, for the remission of sins. And the priest who gathered up the ashes of the heifer and washed his clothes, and before his oblation be unclean till evening. And this shall be for the cleansing of the children of Israel, a statute forever. Whoever toucheth the body of a dead man, or of a child of some months old, either his body or his blood, shall be unclean 7 days. He shall sprinkle himself with this water of the ashes on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he sprinkle not himself on the 3rd day, his uncleanness will remain upon him, and he will not be clean on the 7th day. Whoever hath touched the body of a dead man, or of a child 9 months old, either the body or the blood, and will not sprinkle himself, he hath defiled the tabernacle of the Lord. And that man shall be cut off from Israel, forasmuch as the water of sprinkling is not sprinkled upon him. He is unclean. His uncleanness is yet on him, until he shall sprinkle himself. Yet may he sprinkle and make ablution on the 7th evening. And this is the indication of the law concerning a man when he hath died under the outspread tent. Everyone who enters into the tent by the way of the door, but not from its side when the door is open, or when one hath opened the door, and whatever is in the tent, its floor, stone, wood, and vessels, shall be unclean for 7 days. And every earthen vessel which hath no covering fastened upon its mouth, which would have kept it separated from the uncleanness, is defiled by the uncleanness of the ear which touches its mouth, and its interior, and not the outside of it only. And whoever shall touch not one who hath died in his mother's womb, but who hath been slain by the sword on the face of the field, or the sword with which he was slain, or the dead man himself, or a bone of his, or the hair, or a bone of a living man, which hath been separated from him, or a grave, or a shroud, or the briar, shall be unclean for 7 days. And for him who is unclean, they shall take of the ashes of the burnt sin offering, and put spring water upon them in the earthen vessel. And let a man, a priest, who is clean, take 3 branches of hyssop bound together, and dip them in the water at the time of receiving the uncleanness, and sprinkle the tent and all its vessels, and the men who are in it, or upon it, who had touched the bone of a living man that hath been severed from him, and hath fallen, or him who hath been slain with the sword, or hath died by the plague, or a grave, or a rapper, or a briar. And the priest who is clean shall sprinkle upon the unclean man on the 3rd and on the 7th day, and he shall make him clean on the 7th day, and he shall sprinkle his clothes and wash himself with water, and at evening be clean. But the unclean man who will not be sprinkled, that man shall be cut off from among the congregation, because he has defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water of sprinkling hath not been sprinkled upon him, he is unclean, and it shall be unto you an everlasting statute. The priest also who sprinkles the water of sprinkling shall sprinkle his clothes, and he who touches the water of sprinkling shall be unclean until evening. And whatsoever the unclean person hath touched, though he carry it not, shall be unclean, and the clean man who touches him shall be unclean until evening. Holy be his name. This is the end of the reading. I just want to make one mention about the red heifer. It says here that it shall be for the congregation of Yasharel for the sprinkling of water. It is the heifer for the remission of sins. Well, as we know, Yeshua is our sin sacrifice. So the red heifer is now not needed. We don't need to do any more sin offerings, because the ultimate Son of the living God, Yahusha, came 2,000 years ago, lived the living Torah, the Word made flesh, the Torah, made flesh and dwelt amongst us. And he lived out every commandment. He obeyed his Father and all the ancient prophecies. But he came for that purpose, to replace the red heifer and all sin offerings. He was the atonement, the living atonement, the perfect atonement. And as we know, he went down to hell and he took all the righteous back up with him. Hell could not contain him because they had no hold over him, because he was perfect. He had not sinned. Sin means breaking God's laws, God's covenants, and he never did that. So he had the authority over Hasatan, over Satan and his little minions, because he was clean. He was the ultimate sacrifice. So we don't need any red heifers that they're doing in Israel now. It's just ignoring God's Son and what he did. And it's not a good thing to do if you want to be saved in his kingdom. So holy be his name. And thank you, Yahusha, for doing what you did. Holy be his name.